So all of our clay comes from a supplier in Cornwall. It's the most local source of white clay that we've got, and it's a beautiful clay body. It's very coarse. It's got a lot of sand and a lot of mollicite, which allows us to make bigger sizes and flat tiles that stay flat. So the clay arrives at the workshop by the ton, and it's then processed using a pug mill. Our pug mill is from the 1940s, and we put die plates on the end of it to extrude blocks to the outer dimensions of the tiles that we're going to be making. This is the first stage of the process. We then leave those blocks to dry for anywhere up to half a day, depending on how warm or cool the workshop environment is. These tiles are then cut on a tabletop cutter. We get around 30 tiles to the block. They're all laid out onto wooden racks, and the top surface is rubbed down. This just ensures that when we apply the glazes, you don't get pinholes coming through and problems with the glaze application. They're then put into a drying cupboard, and the tiles are left for anything up to a week to dry. And once they're dry, we stack them into piles of 6, and we hand finish all of the edges using a knife, just to make sure they're nice and smooth, because once the glaze is applied, if they were left rough, they'd become razor sharp. We then apply a glaze using a ladle. All of the glazes are mixed on site using raw materials. There's usually a clay element, a glass element, and a colourant, and they all get mixed here to our own recipes to produce all of our glazes. So once the glaze is mixed, we apply it to the tile using a ladle, and every tile is glazed individually. It's then placed onto a wooden rack just to dry off before being put into the kiln. We have to fire all of our tiles on shelves. Because we're firing up to 1280 degrees centigrade, it means that the clay and the glaze almost become fluid, and if we didn't fire them on complete shelves, the tiles would warp and bend. Once the tiles are in the kiln, they go up to temperature over a period of about 18 hours. But the whole firing cycle is about 3 days cool to cool. This is because the kiln gets incredibly hot, and all of the bricks and all of the furniture and the tiles retain heat for a long period of time. So it takes almost 2 days for the kiln to cool. Once the tiles have been through this 3-day firing cycle, we tentatively open the door, hoping that everything's been good. They come out of the kiln, they're boxed up, and they're ready for the customer. The beauty of handmade tiles is that they're being touched several times in the production, from the very beginning of the process to the very moment they're coming out of the kiln and being put into boxes. And the end user, the person commissioning these tiles, really gets a sense of that. You see undulations in the surface, you see responses from the glazes, you see tonal variation and surface variation that you just can't get with a machine, because you've got that wonderful variety that only a hand can produce.